Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Yes, welcome in to the Austin Schlottman Celebration Podcast. That is Purple Daily, Purple After Dark, boys.
Hold on.
Schlottman or Schlottman?
According to the Vikings pronunciation in the press release, it's capital S-H-L-O-T-E, Schlott, right?
Schlottman.
And then small M-A-N-N.
Okay.
Schlottman.
Right,
Hold on a second, though, because I found this. Mm-hmm. I'm going to add this to the
Roller Dome? What is this?
The Roller Dome. It's an old school Vikings towel from a line that, I'm not joking, Mike Ditka used in like 1989 to describe the Metrodome. He called it the Roller Dome. And right now, that's become the official Vikings towel of this show.
All right, there it is. The Roller Dome towel. Wow.
Roller Dome, baby.
What a great addition to the show here. So, Purple Daily and Purple After Dark, powered by the Roller Dome towel and Surly Brewing Company and TCL TVs, which has a new lineup of award-winning TVs delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution, all at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. So, all right. I feel like we needed a disclaimer on the beginning of all these. And we'll pop your comments up on the screen here. If you're watching us on the Purple Daily YouTube channel, click subscribe and the like button so we can spread the word about the show. Thank you very much. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. And, they're not really making a huge splash in free agency to this point. So they have signed, defensive tackle Harrison Phillips. He's a legit player. He's a starter. Great. Jordan Hicks, the linebacker, to potentially play alongside Eric Kendricks in a 3-4 base. Great. The other two moves they've made so far, tight end Johnny Munt.
Great.
He's kind of a backup tight end from the Rams. 10
he's a blocking
catches.
tight end, man. He's going to come in there and block.
He's coming off an injury. And then Austin Schlottman, who is a guard center, undrafted, 500 career snaps, 26-year-old sort of a depth guy. So
52 snaps last year, including 42 at center in a game against the Raiders in Las Vegas, and 10 at guard throughout the course of the entire season. 52 snaps in 2021.
So I don't know. Maybe he's a deep sleeper. But I think the biggest news that we have seen come across here late in the day on this first day of the NFL league year. Happy league year to everyone who celebrates. That's right. Yeah. Ben Gessling from the Star Tribune tweeted out, as the Vikings try to sort out their cap situation, sources continue to say that they've been trying to trade Danielle Hunter, who's got an $18 million roster bonus due on Sunday.
Yeah.
Hunter has a $25.83 million cap figure for 2022. The Vikings need to clear space to make their new deals official, and also this is the conundrum. They got these two dudes. Four dudes, but two dudes. Let's be honest. Yeah. That they just agreed to terms with. So they need room for those guys. And also, I don't know. Maybe they look at the offensive line and say, "Well, it's great actually." But we look at the offensive line and the fact that they have one starting cornerback, and they need to add more things.
Yes, they do. Cornerbacks as well, yes.
So where are you guys at with this? I mean, it kind of feels like this Danielle Hunter thing may be holding them up from doing other things. And if they're trying to trade him, that now you got those negotiations happening with other teams. So what do you make of this?
At first I was, I'd say after Kirk was restructured, or I should say signed to an extension, at first on Monday, as the legal tampering period started, I was sort of frustrated by, okay, what's next? Because, again, Phil, to your point, if you're going to contend, which, by the way, keeping Kirk implies that you're going to contend, you need cornerbacks, you need guards, you need a center preferably, or a guard, not plural probably. But so then I was frustrated. And then Tuesday I was sort of just like, okay, what's going to take place next? And now I am thoroughly confused. And here's why I'm very confused. And if somebody can explain this, that's fine. But everybody I've asked has told me the same thing. People continue to write, and it's accurate, that the Vikings have the right to restructure contracts, which means physically go in and change them. The number one is the guy that you brought up and the guy that was reported on by Gessling, which is Danielle Hunter. You have the right, as far as I can tell, under the contract that was negotiated last year, that, by the way, made him and his camp happy, to go in and take the $18 million roster bonus, convert it to a signing bonus, give Hunter more of his money fit right now, and then over the course of the contract, spread out the cap hits. So you could get the cap hit down. Now, why that makes sense is you could be active right now. Like if you created cap room, you could be active, signing a guard, let's say, signing a cornerback.
Well, they did. Okay. Schlotman is here. They did sign a guard. Okay,
Schlotman's here to save the day.
Slots.
Actually, we should break that back out. Jägerbomb. Anyway, so they could do this with Hunter. They could certainly, it wouldn't be hard to call up Thielen and say, hey, dude, do you want to stay? And he'd be like, oh, yeah. And you'd say, okay, we're going to get your contract down. So they could actively be working on contracts right now, or should have been actively doing this a couple days ago, to be very active right now. Because once you sign Kirk to an extension, you're telling us, Declan, Phil, Judd, we're in for 2022. Okay, we might not agree with that philosophy, but if that's your philosophy, you're in. Instead, I don't know what they're doing. They're like slow playing the ability to create cap room, which is not really very smart when the upper echelon guys are flying off the board, and you've signed Schlotman and you signed Munt, which sounds more like a law firm to me than football players.
Oh my God, it does.
Schlotman and Munt.
Schlotman
oh my
and
God,
Munt.
it does.
If you've been in an accident, Schlotman and Munt are here for you. We
651.
Yes, exactly right. Call Schlotman and Munt today, then you'll
Free
have your
consultation on your way.
Think about it. Hi, I'm Johnny Munt, and hi, I'm Austin Schlotman.
Jackass.
We can make that DUI go away.
Hey,
You need cash now?
If you need someone to block your legal problems, it's Schlotman.
I avoided holding penalties all my life. Let me tell you how to avoid holding penalties in life now.
So anyway, I'm very confused, you guys. Seriously, I'm not kidding about that.
Well, it kind of feels like, outside looking in, it kind of feels like they're a little overwhelmed by the to-do list. The to-do list, go back 5 weeks, was about as complicated as almost any team's to-do list. You first of all, it started with the quarterback, and you got differing opinions in the room with the different stakeholders involved, ownership, front office. Everyone's got an opinion, and they were very much torn internally, and then trying to figure out, okay, what will Kirk's side agree to, and then if he won't, okay, and then we got to talk to teams about a trade, and that took up, for sure, days and maybe even weeks of bandwidth behind the scenes. And then there's the Danielle Hunter thing. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if, with all the different plates they've been trying to spin over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and they got a later start with hiring their head coach who needs input than all the other teams, if not that this snuck up on them, but just this is a mountain of decisions to make that involve so many variables that are out of your control. And here they sit. Now, to your point, why don't they, they could just unilaterally restructure Danielle Hunter's contract.
Correct.
And maybe they will. Maybe that's the plan B. And they've got, plan A is, well, we'd like to get him signed to an extension, or maybe plan A is we'd like to trade him, but that's taking longer than usual. And for whatever reason, now 8 of the top 10 guards are off the board. The top 3 or 4 centers are off the board. So now, your avenue to fix your offensive line in free agency. And again, another thing we don't know is, especially with an analytically driven general manager, I think the philosophy there would be, don't overpay for a guard in free agency, especially when you have limited cap space, which to us, watching the guard play here for the last 6 years is blasphemous. No, just pay whatever it takes. But someone coming in with fresh eyes might say, we're not going to overpay for a guard and compound roster and positional spending problems.
But the Danielle Hunter thing, so that's the first one. What I don't understand about that entire situation is that didn't sneak up on you. You've known that is a key. There were, the day that Kwesi took the job, right, Phil? there were like, let's say 3 to 5 just to do right now. You've got to start working. Kirk, which got done. Danielle, Thielen, whose contract has to come down. Like, it makes no sense to pay him what he is due. It makes sense to keep him at the right price. So that's what I don't get. Like I understand if you were trying to sign guys right and left on the market and it falls through, you get outbid. That happens. It's frustrating, but it happens. But internally, like, there were some checkpoints here that had to be addressed. And if you're going to keep Kirk, you need to then say, okay, we don't want to pay a guard too much, but we know damn well that part of this guy's problem is his interior protection has not been sufficient. And I think, Phil, you brought this up a couple days back, and you're probably right. There's actually a football case to be made that if you're going to overpay, if Kirk's your quarterback, if you have two what we consider to be potentially position-wise disposable spots, running back and guard, like, you don't want to pay him a ton. I think your point, and you're right, was the Vikings pick guard because, like, it's more important to get Kirk interior protection. You're paying Dalvin a ton, like, too much. So I agree with you that there might be things that overwhelmed and snuck up on them. But some of the internal stuff, to me, is not excusable unless there's something that they aren't telling us because they don't want to, and we just flat out don't know.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I'm just trying to untangle here, not just with today and this week, but the last 2 months of process and everything that led them to bringing Kirk Cousins back for a couple more years. And it's now been 17 years of Wilf ownership. 17 years, 17 seasons. 2005 was the first season.
Sure.
The average record of the Vikings over that stretch, 8-8. And I want to say about 2/3 of those seasons have been 7, 8, 9, or 10-win seasons. They are the NFL's median. The Vikings are, if there is, all right, what is the median NFL team? What is the exact mid-tier NFL team over the last 2 decades? It is the Minnesota Vikings, save for, a pop-up season once every 9 or 10 years where they go to the NFC Championship game with Brett Favre, 39 years old, or Case Keenum, just having this random season as a backup.
Right.
And this offseason, to me, with the re-signing of Cousins, who is the gravitational pull toward 500, this offseason, to me, just feels like more doubling down on the median, on 8 wins. Now, I get that now it's more like 8 and 9 or 9 and 8, but
I get your point.
That's that's the mind-numbing thing about this franchise. Like, they are so afraid to deviate from that median because, oh boy, if you get it wrong, it's you don't want to live life as a Lions fan or owner or a Jets fan or Browns from 1999 through 2019.
Right.
But are you really, like, right now as it stands, they're running it back with a roster that's another year old? Like, do they really look around the league and say, yeah, firing Mike Zimmer, and even if they add, let's say they do wind up adding like one meaningful offensive lineman or something. I mean, are they really looking at this and saying coaching was the difference between missing the playoffs and not making the playoffs, but contending for a Super Bowl? Because that's the thing that I think people get mixed up with. It's, well, hey, Mike Zimmer was kind of a garbage fire coach at the end there. So if you replace him, then you're a playoff team. Being a playoff team is not the bar for this franchise. Winning a Super Bowl is the bar for this franchise. So why are you sitting here again for like the 4th straight offseason with a good, not great quarterback who's making a lot of money? He still has like the 5th or 6th highest cap hit, trying to squeeze cap space where you can. You're jammed up against the salary cap. Maybe you can get the 12th best guard or something. Like, it's the same offseason as they've had the last 2 years. And I get that we're like 4 hours into the league year, and so like there's more moves that could potentially be made, but it's not like they're sitting on a boatload of money and half of the good free agents or more are off the board. They're gone. And you've also missed a window here, unless there's a bunch of trades coming, and maybe Danielle Hunter is the first of a handful of trades. But like you've got some aging players that probably aren't leading you to a Super Bowl at this point. And this is a great chance to capitalize on whatever value they have left. You could trade those players, Danielle Hunter being, example number one, for draft capital that can help you quickly restock the cupboards with talented young first and second round players.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like they're sitting on the fence with all of this. Do one thing or the other. Either go for it or strip it. And re-signing Kirk, but trading Danielle is sort of like, think about that. We're going to re-sign Kirk.
Right.
But
It
we're
makes
gonna
less
trade
sense.
Danielle.
And if you had your choice, so if you knew nothing about them as people, just players, and I came to you tomorrow and said, what's going to hurt your franchise more? You would say trading Hunter. He's flat out one of the best players. Like Kirk, we talk about is, take your pick, 10 to 14, right? We talk about when Hunter is healthy, he is top 5 at what he does in the entire National Football League. There's no question about it. He's a magnificent player. This is as confused as I've ever been by this team. They have been incredibly active when they have cap room, so it's not they're cheap problem that they have. When Childress got here, and my God, he had his faults for sure. But if you recall, they got Lieber and Hutchinson and Longwell and Chester Taylor, and they basically said, we need to retool. We know that, and we're doing it. And, it didn't work, but I give them credit for it. And what they are doing now, to me, I'm not joking. It makes no sense. Like I feel like I'm looking at a puzzle that's sort of half done, and someone's hiding the rest of the pieces. I want to know what they are doing.
By the way, here's a glimpse. And again, they probably weren't going to re-sign Tyler Conklin. So this isn't about Tyler Conklin, but Tyler Conklin told the Pioneer Press, Conklin is a Jet now. He said, we were in communication with the Vikings, but with some of the cap stuff, it was just a tough situation. I understood that. It just didn't work out timing-wise. It's going to be bittersweet leaving Minnesota. So like the Vikings were in contact with Tyler Conklin. We could maybe make this work, but we got some cap stuff to figure out. And he's like, that's all right. I got an offer over here. How many other players has that happened with? Where if you could just hold on, just give it like a day. We got to do this, and they're like,
Well,
sorry.
And tight end, look, I'm guessing that Irv Smith Jr. is going to come back fine. So tight end is not going to be like a priority position to pay guys at. I totally get that. But until we find out something is different, this feels to me like a combination of two things. The one that you talked about, Phil, which is there's a lot of chefs, which I hate in sports, but there's a lot of chefs and they're all trying to cook and they're like, put this in, no, do this, no, do that. And the second thing is 2 young guys starting jobs who appear to be overwhelmed.
Yeah. Well,
this feels like they are overwhelmed. And look, they're both new at this. And if I have my bosses trying to tell me, oh, you got to re-sign Kirk, you got to do this, I'm probably going to start to question myself some too. And I'm not saying that they're not going to be good, but there is no common sense feeling for, oh, I sort of get this. Sort of get. And if you trade Hunter now, tell me so you've traded your best end. You basically at nose tackle cut Pierce to save room and signed the guy from the Bills to replace Pierce. So that's not like an upgrade there. You signed a veteran linebacker, but I'm not sure that Kendricks is not gone. And so it feels to me like we're in a situation with a lot of people telling Kwesi what he should do. And it seems to be a lot right now.
Well, I also think, and Eric H. here chimes in on the Purple Daily comments, the YouTube comment section. These guys are in full-blown panic mode, and it's mid-March. I mean, I guess we're kind of full-blown panic. I don't know. I don't think I'll speak for myself. It's not panic. It's just like I'm looking at this and saying, okay, so the worst place to be year in and year out is where the Vikings have largely been for 17 years, which is average of 8 wins. 8 wins, 7 wins. Oh, a little 9-win action over here. Ooh, look at that. Oh, flirted with the playoffs there. That was great.
Yeah.
But but it's a terrible place to be in because you're not actually a Super Bowl contender. It's not like people say just get in. That ain't true. You're not just you're gonna just get in and win 4 non-home games and win a Super Bowl.
Right.
No, you got to get in with like 12 or 13 wins, play a home game, get a bye. Like that's the surefire path to Super Bowl contention, and the Vikings are rarely that.
Yep.
So like obviously you would rather be 11, 12, 13 wins than 7, 8, 9 wins, but then I would rather be at this point 3 or 4 wins or 5 wins for a minute while I collect draft capital. And what makes no sense is you just locked into 2 more years of Kirk Cousins, and the next story out of the gate is that you're trying to trade one of the best edge rushers in the NFL.
Correct.
Now, if you've decided that medically he's just not reliable, okay, but other teams are going to see that too. It doesn't feel like that though. If either stock up on draft capital, including trading Kirk Cousins, which they had offers for.
Mm-hmm.
And just go all in for a 2023 window reopening because you can rebuild quick in the NFL.
Right.
Or trade draft picks for established players, and you got to work some cap magic to make that happen in some ways too. I'm sick of this like riding the middle. Let's have Kirk Cousins on the team and then draft 38 players over 3 years and not use any picks to get established players. Like, you want to be the Rams? People always talk about the Rams blueprint. Look what they did with Matthew Stafford. Yeah, they traded all their first-round picks for like 7 years to get established players to put around Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay.
Mm-hmm.
They gave him actual chess pieces. Mm-hmm. So, like, the Vikings are constantly trying to ride that middle ground of, we got the quarterback, but okay, let's not go too crazy, making trade. Let's be looking out for the future too. And it just feels more of the same so far this offseason. And I get that I'm probably overreacting in the first 4 hours.
Yeah, but hold on a second here because Dex just put up that comment from the real Jabroni that says, trust the process. The league year is 4 hours old. And I got another tweet today saying, come on, Judd, you do know that the season does not start until September, right? Ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to be a Vikings fan, if you're going to be a National Football League fan, we need to, and like you're going to be in on what we're talking about here. The league is 12 months long. The games start in September. But at 3 o'clock today, you know what started? A player procurement process that's incredibly important to be done right. So like this whole thing about, well, it's March. Are you kidding me? I mean, do you get to the draft and say, it's April, let's not do the draft. Let's get out of the draft. Of course not. These are all incredibly important steps to building your team, not just for opening day in September, but for the rest of time, for the next 5 years. And the important thing today is not that the Vikings have not signed guys. That's frustrating, and I get that they don't have cap room. The important thing about today is why they haven't signed guys and what they're doing. And I guess the one thing I will say is this. You don't really care that much about this team if, and this is the if, okay? If you're like, well, just trust the team, then you don't really care about the team. Because if you really think a team that Phil just said in 17 years owned by what's a decent group, not great, but they're decent, and their average wins are 8, okay? Are you telling me that's cool? Like, oh, trust the Vikings. First of all, we don't know a thing, and they might be good. I'm not panicking, but we don't know a thing about O'Connell and Kwesi as far as what they're going to do here, okay? So we have no background. We have no, you don't understand. Kwesi won 6 Super Bowls, and O'Connell was actually the head coach. Yeah. No, that's not the case. So my point is, you can't just say, oh, don't get excited today. Who cares about this? They just committed at least 2 more years to a very well-paid quarterback who, if you're going to do that, the move then is, okay, you're in. I don't agree with it, but you're in. So let's go in. And now you're saying, I don't really want to go in. So what are you doing? But it frustrates me to no end to be like, well, it's March. So I got bad news for you, folks. In June, there ain't 15 great players who are going to pop up and just be, I just signed 15 guys, right? Like today, Phil, 8 of the 10 top guards are gone, right?
Yes.
Okay. 8 of the top 10
It might
guards.
actually be 9 now.
Okay.
I saw some other dude just signed.
But the point is, they're gone.
Let me see here. Just want to make sure. I don't think Andrew Norwell has signed. Daryl Williams, is he signed? Actually, he's more of a tackle.
But the
now?
point is, the guys that we were talking about, this team getting one of them to protect Kirk, which, by the way, we were talking about getting a guy to protect Kirk.
Yeah.
So
Austin Blythe is
Okay.
the center of the sign.
I just get really frustrated with this whole thing of, like, if you don't care about March, that's your prerogative. Check out. See you in September. See you in September. But if you don't care about that, then you don't really care about what this show is about, because a Super Bowl championship is not won from September through February.
Yeah. I'm also trying to sit here and just put myself in their shoes. Okay, what is, they've kind of committed to like a 2-year Kirk window here, and then after that it's kind of a blank canvas because you don't know who your quarterback's going to be, and you can't credibly say that you're trying to win a Super Bowl if you don't know who your quarterback's going to be. So really, we can only evaluate them in this 2-year window. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to logically deduce this, right? I don't think it makes sense to re-sign Kirk Cousins to 2 more locked-in seasons if you're not trying to compete for a Super Bowl, right?
Correct.
Stop me if I'm wrong here.
No, you're in.
I think some people would say, well, no, I mean, like, you want to make sure that you have a competitive quarterback. Okay, but again, paying over $30 million while you're trying to retool, like, your roster is not good enough. It's not like 4 years ago or like the Rams where, hey, everything else is ready to rock, or the Colts.
Right.
Everything's ready to rock. We just need that dude at quarterback. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you've been financially responsible under the salary cap, and you can fit that contract in like they could in 2018. Okay, now it makes sense to plop that guy on top of a great roster, inside of a great car, go drive it. That's not the case here. They have a ton of roster work to be done. I mean, that's the biggest complaint, right? Kirk needs more help.
Yes.
Get Kirk a line. Get Kirk a defense.
Yes.
Get Kirk this. And those points are all valid. Okay, so they're doing it the opposite way now as they did 4 years ago. Okay, well, let's start with Kirk, because we know that we like Kirk, and we know that he's one of the 15 best quarterbacks in the world. So we're going to start with Kirk. We're going to bring his cap number down a little bit. It's still pretty high. It's still one of the 5 or 6 highest in the NFL, but it's lower than it was a week ago. Mm-hmm. Okay, now we're kind of sitting at the same stoplight here. We got to fix the roster that's been letting Kirk down. How do we do it? Well, we can clear a little room here and there. It just doesn't, what is the path to Super Bowl contention in 2022 or 2023? And if you can logically get to that point where it's like, actually, if we're looking at this objectively, it is really, really hard to do the things you need to do in free agency and then nail blue chip, ready to rock players in the draft to help you in 2022-23. So if you can't compete for a Super Bowl, then take the 2 second-rounders from Cleveland or whatever the offers were and just get on with it. Just rip off the Band-Aid, clear the cap space for 2023.
Yes. Get
tons of draft capital and go in 2023.
Right.
That's what I don't get. In this Danielle Hunter stuff, it's like, dude, he's your best player. Well, Justin Jefferson's probably their best player, but he's one of your 2 or 3 best players, and you're trying to win a Super Bowl, and you're gonna trade him.
And if
for a second rounder,
if nothing else, unless he has a clause that we don't know about, if nothing else, convert the roster bonus to a signing bonus today, and have money to work with. It just doesn't. I am just, one, I'm perplexed. I have no idea what they are doing, which is tough to watch. And 2, I just get really frustrated with this notion of, relax, don't. No, this is no time to relax. This is go time. This is go time. But I mean, it's not like they're it's no big deal. This is when you build, this is when you make the most important decisions that impact your roster.
And do you need Danielle Hunter's permission to restructure his contract or no?
No, that's the thing is, unless
that's what I don't get.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, it feels like there's something we don't know. It feels like, I don't know if because technically you could do it, you could have done it, and it's done, and now you've got. So I feel like there's a missing piece here. But if there is, then they screwed the pooch. There shouldn't be. So
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
it's just kind of weird, man. It's kind of weird. Now, all right, what if let's say tomorrow morning they announce a Danielle Hunter restructure, and maybe they restructure somebody else, Harrison or something.
Yep.
And they announce J.C. Treader. They bring veteran top 5 center in who got cut from Cleveland, J.C. Treader. Okay.
It's a start. Yeah, it's good.
That's okay. So now you've kept your elite edge rusher. You're crossing your fingers on health, and you've massively upgraded one of the most important positions on offense. And you got an actual veteran player in who knows what he's doing. Okay, and now maybe guard is kind of open for Wyatt Davis or whatever, because you can't afford both in free agency. Okay, like that's the type of thing that would get me. I'm not going to put them above the Rams, the Buccaneers, and the Packers in the NFC off of that, but like that's the type of thing that now I can see a path here. I can see what you're trying to do. I can see how you're trying to mold this thing to win and to get to an NFC championship game and cross your fingers in 2022. Trading Danielle Hunter, you might as well trade Kirk Cousins too, and you can't now because the ink is dried. But
you should have.
If you're going to trade, if you're going to trade one, you should just trade both. I would even say, like, if you're going to trade Kirk, I could get on board with keeping Danielle because he's 27 and he's still going to be in his prime when you're ready to pop again in 2023-24. But that ship has sailed.
Yep. No, he is the better player. There's no question. Yeah, that's okay. If they did what you said and Treader gets signed tomorrow, Hunter stays. At least it starts to make some sense then. Currently it doesn't. And I guess why I am a little bit not just perplexed but frustrated is this Hunter thing seems to be dragging out. Like, this is not the time to be haggling. This is the time to be. This is why supposedly the contract had a very clear-cut language, right? That you could make this move now because they haggled with him last year and it got done. And so it feels like there's an unnecessary hang up here. That's again stopping you from possibly trying to build the best team.
All right, Nine Toes Fishing says unwatchable. All this complaining.
What do you want? Like, do you want us to like sugarcoat this? That's what I don't get. What do people want? A breakdown of Austin Schlottman?
I think that would be great, actually. Yeah, if you could provide a little insight into
I'm going to tell you right
Austin
now.
Schlottman.
I'm going to tell you right now. Austin Schlottman and Johnny Munt sound like two guys who would enjoy a surly beer. That's exactly right. Because when they get done with a long, hard day, fighting off case after case at the law firm of Schlottman and Munt, do you know what they like to do? They like to go to the bar and enjoy a Surly Furious because it's a delicious beer. And it's hard being Schlottman and Munt. I have a lot of respect for that. And so, yes, they enjoy any product from Surly Brewing, but especially the Furious, which is how I'm sort of feeling right now and watching the Vikings spin their wheels.
I think if I could just be honest here and self-reflect for a moment, I think I have post-traumatic Vikings offseason stress syndrome where I just kind of assume, that they're going to wind up doing the same thing that they've done the last few years because that's the way. Because we have no other reason to believe otherwise right now. So I am going to back off for now, give this thing some time to breathe. Let's see what happens tonight, tomorrow morning. But to your point about the comment about like it's only March. Like, no, March is the most important time in the NFL.
Yes.
March and April to build your team for next year.
Yes.
And then it gets kind of dull unless you're into like, organized team activities in May and June, which we will be. But this is definitely the time to build your team. I mean, look at the Buffalo Bills. They just lock in Von Miller. Like the Chargers. I mean, the Chargers are going from a non-playoff team to a contender because of March. The Buffalo Bills may have found the final piece to be better than the Chiefs because of March.
Right.
And the Vikings, ultimately, this is going to sound crazy, but ultimately the Vikings, by re-signing Kirk Cousins, aspire to be competing with teams like the Bills and the Chiefs and the Packers at the top of the NFC or the teams that you might face in the Super Bowl, right? Like that should be the expectation. So I think that's why we're a little overheated here because it's like, guys, this urgency.
It's go time.
It's go time.
It's go time.
Gotta go.
So what is the so here's the thing too that I don't get. So we get a lot of in our conversations about Kirk Cousins, we get a lot of, well, I mean, look at Kirk's line. What's Kirk supposed to do? So we have sat here since he got the extension advocating to improve that, right? Like, that's the big thing. And so if you're a Kirk stan or a Kirk defender and you're watching them not improve the line, aren't you like confused? Like, do you want that? Like, do the Kirk stans want that excuse? Well, I mean, if they don't improve his line, we can still blame that. Like, I'm trying to find ways for this team to proactively improve itself.
That's a really high level psychological work there too. Like, maybe they don't want the offensive line to be improved, because then you can keep using it as a
right.
crutch. It's a good
but shouldn't that be, if you are a Vikings / especially Kirk fan?
Yeah.
Shouldn't that be a goal? Hey, you know what? The guard's good now.
What do you think? Let me ask you this question, because I mean, there's really no. There's like one. I'm looking at the PFF list of guards available now. Some of these guys would still be a huge upgrade over what they've been running out. Like Andrew Norwell would be a big upgrade, but Andrew Norwell is going to go for probably $7 or $8 million a year that you do not have right now. He also plays. Norwell plays left guard, so you'd have to probably move Ezra Cleveland over. He's 30 years old. So there's a couple guys out there, but let's say they whiff on these guys for whatever reason. They're just not interested in paying a guard, or they don't have enough cap space. What is your level of confidence that a competent offensive coaching staff can just get more out of the current or similar personnel than Mike Zimmer's coaching staff did? Because isn't that part of it? Like, let's develop some of these offensive linemen more than they were under Mike Zimmer's watch. It wasn't like Mike Zimmer was spending, an hour at practice helping Oli Udoh and Dakota Dozier and some of these guys and Garrett Bradbury get better. He's over with the cornerbacks and the linebackers. Sure. He's leaning on a 35-year-old Clint Kubiak offensive coordinator who was the wide receivers coach at Kansas 5 years ago. Like, that guy was in over his head. Right. So getting a real offensive coaching staff in here should raise the water level of some of the subpar linemen that they've had. Just throwing it out there.
It should raise it some, but I don't think that they can make Garrett Bradbury better. Now, if Davis can step in and play guard, that's Mike's fault because he didn't play him. So that might help. But I think that they can raise the offense, and I think that they can make it better. But I also think it's imperative to, and I'm not saying this in a critical way, I think it's imperative to really give yourself a chance to remove the Cousins excuses. And the reality of football now is interior defensive linemen are really damn good, and they can rush the passer, and they can forklift guys. Like, they're not fat, they're strong, and they can. And so I don't think that you can stop Garrett Bradbury from being thrown backwards. Like, and I don't think that there's a special diet that you can put him on to bulk him up. And, oh my God, he's not being thrown, three rows into the seats. So
if it was just a weight thing, it would be easy to fix. It's not just his weight.
No, and he's just a smaller. I mean, he's just not a big guy. So I don't think I can get him to a place where he's going to be good. Do I think the offense can be improved? Absolutely. Do I think it can be improved enough if you just plug in a guard who's not great and Bradbury? I think you create problems. And if you're going to go in, I'm going in with at least one of those two spots with a really pretty damn good player.
I want to ask the audience here, and we don't have an official poll function here. We can see the YouTube comments. Do you think we are being too negative on this episode and too reactionary? Are we just sort of reacting to decades of pent up Vikings frustration here? So no. So give us just say yes, you're overreacting in the comment section, or no, you're not. Oh my God, it's mostly no.
And I'd be curious to hear.
Lucas says a little bit, overreacting.
So I'd like to know too, because our fan base is incredibly smart. How important do you think today is? Because I think the majority of people who watch us and are very intelligent and discerning fans, I think that they know that today is a really important day.
Yeah. How would you feel to everyone, you guys, Judd and Declan, and the audience too. How would you feel if they turned around and traded Danielle Hunter for a second and a third?
Second and a third would be underwhelming to me.
Do you think they can get a first for Danielle?
Yes.
They probably can, but I still wouldn't get it.
What if it's a first and a third? Like, what did Jared Allen get back in the day?
Oh, he got
the Vikings paid two
he
firsts
got
and a third?
a couple thirds.
First and 2/3.
Yeah, it was steep.
Let's say they get a first and a third for Danielle Hunter.
Then
do you say yes, and what would you make of that move?
I would say yes to that trade, and it would signify that you get cap space freed, and you look for another defensive end on a rookie scale contract. That's what I would do.
But then you shouldn't have recommitted to Kirk. That's the problem.
And you should have done it a week ago. So
you put yourself in a
guard
corner.
for agency.
Well, right.
It's so weird.
But why
I'd probably take it too at this point. I want the draft capital.
I do too.
Give me the draft capital.
But then why didn't you trade Kirk to the Browns, who, by the way, now it is abundantly clear would have taken Kirk?
Yeah, they're trying to move off Baker.
Well,
so
and they've
fast.
been trying to move off of him for a month now. It's just come to a head because of the Watson talk.
I think Chris Mortensen went on ESPN today and said a source told him that they're going to divorce Baker no matter what happens with Watson because they're looking for an adult to play quarterback.
That's one of the greatest quotes I've ever seen. Whoever said that, God bless you. That's a great quote. But Phil, wouldn't you say I would do that trade? So if I get a 1 and 3 for Danielle, I'll do that trade. But explain to me then, what are they doing?
Yeah, it's accumulating draft capital to load up for a 2023 to 2026 window makes a ton of sense.
Yes.
And I guess I don't know why you would forego a chance to collect draft capital by turning down offers for Kirk Cousins and then saying yes to offers for Danielle Hunter.
Correct.
You know, it would just be more dissonance. That's the second time I've used that word today.
Today it's a great word. I'll say it like I said this morning.
Unless,
is a great word.
Again, I am purely speculating here. This is not at all inside information. But is there a chance that Danielle Hunter, and again, we're getting this, if you're joining us here in at the halfway point of this live Purple After Dark, thank you. Click the subscribe button and the like button to help spread the word about this Vikings community on Purple Daily. Is there a chance that Danielle just doesn't really feel like playing for the Vikings anymore for whatever reason, doesn't like the scheme fit? I mean, I think they would have figured that out a month ago or 3 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe he's looking around and seeing some of these other teams like, I'd rather, look at the Bills, or, look at the Chiefs. I'd rather just go play for a contender. And the Vikings are saying, well, we would like to we're just going to restructure your contract, and then the Danielle, without your permission, because we can, and then the Hunter camp comes back and says, you can do that, but my client's not going to show up for training camp if that's the case. He's going to hold out.
Right.
I mean, this is like...
But then I would have said, okay, I'm still going to execute the change in your contract, and we will look to trade you after that. I feel like there's a gaping something that we don't get about this. But the problem is, if you're a Vikings fan, it's holding your team back. And questions at that point aren't important. Results are.
Yeah. Yep. Well, any other final thoughts from you guys here? Thank you, by the way, to
Bruins just tied the game.
Archner,
my night is crap.
Ropolis, love the show, he says.
Thank you. My night is going to hell.
It's okay. The Timberwolves are destroying the Lakers early on.
Of course they are. They
are retiring LeBron James tonight, and it is glorious.
I am actually surprised that they even showed up to play our Wolves. The Lakers are such a mess. My final thoughts are to end, at least personally, attempt to end on a positive note. My final thought is this. If your scenario that you just said a little while back, that in the morning, they announced the Hunter contract has been converted or fixed. I don't know. And they announce that J.C. Treader has signed. I at least say, okay, I sort of get that now. It makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
It makes more sense. My number one frustration coming into tonight's show, though, is why they hadn't freed up cap space to be competitive once Kirk was signed to his extension, to have a move or two made that weren't Johnny Munt and Austin Schlottman.
I think I have a theory on that too, because overthecap.com a few weeks ago put together sort of a restructure tool for all the different teams, and without even needing the permission of the players that are under contract, they could do some simple restructures and get like $25-30 million under the salary cap.
Sure.
But that would be 5, 6, or 7 players and reallocating cap space from 2022 to future seasons.
Okay.
And I truly think Kwesi came in here, smart guy, analytical guy, Wall Street guy, understands how screwed their cap situation is and how mediocre they are. And I think deep down he knew that it would be a really handcuffing, foolish move to just keep kicking 6 cans down the road. We can't do that. I guess with Kirk, we're going to sign up for a couple more years and kick a can, in void years, but we can't do that. Can't do that with 6 or 7 players.
Yeah.
So I think they are actively choosing to not do that, but then it's bloating their cap for 2022 and making it harder to make this year's team good.
Well, you know what, Phil? If you're right, and I mean, that sounds really screwed up, but it could be right. If you're right, that would scream to Kwesi wanted to move Kirk and was told no. And
yes,
said, okay, screw it.
Yes,
but if that's how they are operating, that's terrible. So like that's not I feel good about that. Like if what you just said, which could be right, is absolutely correct, then that is a terrible way to do business, because it basically means that you hired a GM and said you can't do part of your job.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not a big fan of that either.
So a couple other things of note too. Jeff Gladney signed a 2-year deal with Arizona. Apparently he had double-digit teams interested in him. His former first-round pick. He's eligible to play now.
Not guilty, so yeah, you're right.
And then Anthony Barr. So the Vikings restructured his contract a year ago and tacked at least 1, maybe 2 void years on the end, meaning his payments ran out after 2021 and his contract came to an end. And once that happened, then the void years kick in for 2022-23, where they're sort of they're paying for Barr without him being here. Right. Well, once the clock turned league year 2022 and his contract was officially done, it means that those void year dollars that they're paying against the cap are on the books, which makes it much, much less likely that Anthony Barr comes back in 2022. So it's all a very convoluted way of saying Anthony Barr is probably gone. So any notions of him playing in a 3-4 defense and seeing what he can do off the edge, it seems unlikely now. We'll see how it transpires. So, all right, hey, to 500 football.
Roller Dome.
To the Roller Dome. We need a towel that says reject 500 football.
Yep.
I reject 500 football.
Should old free agents be signed by the Vikings and they fail miserably?
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone who's hanging out with us here on this first day of the NFL league year. A quiet free agency so far for the Vikings. We'll see if something happens later tonight or tomorrow. This has been Purple Daily, Purple After Dark. See you guys tomorrow.